Good evening. My name is D.Moss, and this is One-on-One with D.Moss. We do this every Thursday evening at 7:30. We try and get with politicos, activists, and shake 'em ups on these Thursday evenings. So sometimes you're going to hear some things you ain't going to want to hear, but you need to hear. And now we're bringing on folks who like to keep it raw, tell the truth as they see it, and keep it real. Tonight, we got Brother Charles X on with us. How you doing this evening, brother?
Doing good, sir. Praise be to Allah. And yourself?
Man, listen, I woke up breathing, therefore I'm blessed. My ancestors walk with me. So we ready to do this. All right. So we have you on today. And I specifically want to talk about something. We're going to talk about a few things. I want to talk about something that took place this past Saturday. You guys excuse, I'm in daddy mode, so I got my daughter in the background. But something took place on Saturday afternoon. You know what? I'm gonna move all the way back. Let's back up. Let's tell folks who you are and what you do, because they need to understand the significance of this conversation. So I'm gonna let you do that.
My name is Charles X. Everyone knows me as Charles Stokes. I've been living here most of my life, and right now I am active in MORE. That's Mothers Overlooked, reaching out for empowerment, inspiring change, and seeking justice for families of homicide victims by guns, in particular here in the city of Springfield, Mass. Recently been working in the community with Reverend David Lewis, Gary Porter, Nasir Islam, Hamza, and others, trying to get some peace in the streets.
Okay.
So
you're out there working. You're out there from street level, working with young brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters, because they're not all kids, and folks need to understand that. So you work with younger brothers and sisters and trying to get them to kind of redirect their behaviors, their attitudes, and their sense of self. Correct?
True.
All right. Talk about, if you can get specific, talk about some of the work that you've been doing. Like when you say you're out there working with them, talk about what you've been doing. I know I read in the paper, it said you visited 3 of the families who tragically lost their loved ones to the street violence. Can you talk about that?
Yes. It's been more than 3 families.
Okay.
So the background for this is most of the children, not children, I call them children because I'll be 60 in October. So to me, they're children.
Okay.
And they're children of family members and friends and loved ones of mine and all of ours. And so when a young person is murdered, we go to the house and we console the families. More often than not, Brother Darrell, I get a phone call or a text of messenger letting me know when someone has gotten killed. And we try to get together to try to be of comfort to the families and sit amongst the families as they're mourning and crying over the death of their loved one. And then you go to another parent's house and they're crying because the parent I just left child may have been involved in something. And so it's that close to home, and it's like that's the work that myself and because we're a team, Dave Lewis, Gary Porter, Nasir, Hamza, and Brother Ronald, we're all really trying to do the best we can to decrease the peace in the city. So that's what I've been doing now for the past 23 years, but in particularly the last year, it has really been I take that back. When George Floyd was executed, I just came back in from Boston, and you and I had met, and I was really not going to get involved. However, it's in our spirit, and so here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So this leads us to Saturday. The McKnight Neighborhood Council and one of the city councilors, they have a meeting with the mayor to address street violence. This is work you guys have been doing. There are a few organizations that have been doing similar work. And let me ask, were any of you invited to that particular press conference, gathering, forum, whatever it was they chose to call it?
No, and for clarity, no one knew it had went on. I was um, uh, middling around my house, and I get a bling on my phone, and it's a Facebook post from the vice president of the city council, Miss Tracy Whitfield.
Okay.
Because we've been working on a bunch of us from the community have been working on gun violence initiative for at least 6 months to a year. She had notified myself, Brother Andrew Keaton, and others that this meeting was here. I still had not made up my mind whether or not I was going to go, because it was like, we're doing the work on the ground. I don't got time for that. But then, it dawned on me that maybe I should go. And then that's when I called my brother, and we got there. And
okay. So when you got there, tell me what you experienced, because I think when people see the news, they watch the Western Mass News, and people started making assumptions, and I don't think everyone's fully up to par in terms of what's going on, what has been going on in our community, in terms of our elected officials and some of the folks who self-proclaimed spokespersons for the Black community. What took place? Something, I ain't gonna say got you angry, because you're not that type of guy. Something moved you to the point where you felt the need to speak, and speak passionately.
Well, when I first got out of the car and I walked around, and I saw between 15 to 20 police officers, white shirts, detectives, all types of Crown Vics, and I'm looking, and I'm like, wow, so this is what's going on. And then
Did you say there were about 20 police officers up there?
Man, it was on the back of where we were at. If you could see coming up from Worthington Street, there were police cars parked all over the place, and white shirts, white hats. It was a bevy of police officers, black sergeants that I had never saw before, and it was cameras were set up and everything. And I got, from the moment I walked up there, I was in a sense of, okay, this is truly disrespectful. Right. And I walked up to a brother, and he asked me, was I all right? I guess he had seen me. And I said, fuck no, I'm not all right. Don't y'all see what's going on? I said, this is a dog and pony show, man. I said, Friday night, a brother just got killed on Quincy Street.
Right.
I said 4 days prior to that, on my Facebook, I see the ambulance go down College Street. So I get out my brother's car, running down College Street. Will Parker killed on Shattuck Street, 8 bullets, no mayor, no nothing.
Right.
And that had already put a displeasure in my spirit. And the mayor, Marlo Brown, the Ward 4 city council representative.
Yep.
He started speaking, and I was cool, and then the mayor got on, and he began to say some things.
Tell me what he said.
He said,
first, tell the people what he said.
First, he started off with, crime in our city is going down, and we're doing good on. Then he's beginning to give these statistics, and the only thing he said is an uptick is gun violence, and we're going to have to address this issue. He said, and this is what he said. He said, they keep letting them in and out. They have to stop letting them in and out. And if people are going to, no, he said we should march to the judges, march on the courts, instead of marching to my office. And then I'm going to say it, we need to start locking them up. And I said, wait a minute, you're wrong, sir, Mr. Mayor. I said, no, you're wrong. No, he said, you start locking them up. But when he said, instead of marching to, instead of marching the way we've been marching, that was a direct shot at Miss Juanita Batchelor, who marched from Pearl Street
On
to his
July 20th
office.
of 2020, absolutely. And they
And then
marched
he
to
said, parents should get involved. Looking at her as he was talking, and then that's what precipitated me to engage in the conversation with him and his disrespect to our community.
right.
His
So,
disrespect because he came, it was a setup, brother, from the beginning with Jesse Letterman and Marlo Brown.
hold on. I'm gonna get to that.
Okay, my bad.
No, it's okay. When he said we need to lock them up, who do you think he was talking about when he said we need to lock them up?
He was talking about the repeat offenders.
Okay.
But you have to put it in context. The McKnight City Council,
I mean the McKnight Neighborhood Council.
Neighborhood Council called because they had heard gunshots out in front of their house. So they called. So Jesse Letterman and Marlo thought it would be wise to have this meeting, and the mayor came out to do it just what he did. Always talk about locking us up. And so I said to him, instead of, because this is what he said at the gun violence initiative, he talked about how he has done wonders of getting the motorcycles, illegal bikes off the streets. What in the hell does you getting illegal bikes off the streets have to do with a gun violence initiative or gun violence safety meeting? It had nothing to do with it, but he just wanted to come out and say what he says, disrespect our community, and it's enough of that, because he is, since 2009, there has been 23 unsolved homicides in the city of Springfield under Dominic Sarno, and not one case has been solved. So who are the repeat offenders going in and out when you haven't arrested anyone? Right. For 23, altogether from 1993 to 2014, there are 40 unsolved homicides of Latino Africans and Black Africans. From 2009 to 2014, 20 of those murders occurred. And the list hasn't been updated since 2015 to now. And according to some of the counts that we've been making and family members been calling in, Brother Darrell, under Dominic Sarno's watch and Chief Clapproot, you have close to 50. Listen to this, brothers and sisters in Springfield. 50 unsolved homicides of Blacks and Latinos in the city of Springfield. And he wants to come and talk about how he locked people up on motorcycles. You want to come and talk about the repeat offenders. There are no damn repeat offenders. You haven't arrested anyone for a murder. So there's 30 murderers on the loose, or people committing multiple murders are on the loose. And so you're going to come in our community and Marlo Brown and Jesse Lederman, you gonna come? You don't even ask Tracy Whitfield to come? You don't
Well,
call nobody from the black community?
let me stop you right there. Now, McKnight Neighborhood Council calls and he responds. I know from my years with Dominic Sarno, he very rarely came up on the Hill, no matter what we tried to do to get him up there. Very rarely. So I know the NAACP has attempted to meet with him. Pioneer Valley Project has attempted to meet with him. He showed up at C3 conference. I think that was probably a virtual conference. I doubt he came up there. So you're telling me that although other organizations, and I know the group that you work with more with Juanita Batchelor, much respect to her, they've tried to meet with her and he just didn't have time. So they hear gunshots and the mayor responds. We're talking about dead bodies on the streets and the mayor has no response. How did that play a role in everything that went down on Saturday?
That was a tremendous impact. A lot of the mothers, Sister Felicia, the day of me going to the event, I'm talking to her. Her son was murdered. I call him El Vicar. That's the only name I knew him by. And he was murdered. And her and I was talking as I was riding up there with my brother. She was supposed to come, but she said if she came, she was going to spaz out. Tiangela Parker, her daughter Titi, who was murdered, didn't they didn't want to be in his presence. They've been trying to meet. Mothers have been trying to meet with this mayor for 5 and 6 years. He hasn't once said it. Now, on my Facebook post, Brother Darrell,
yep,
there are people coming out that said I can mention their names. KK Jones, son murdered. Nothing from the mayor. So many others. So that's why I said, I know you don't give a damn about black people.
Carl Cephas, Ivory Downey. I can name about 10 of them off the top of my head. Let me ask you a question. Aside from the mayor not being completely unresponsive, when people talk about their interactions with the police departments and trying to get updates on the investigations, what have the responses been? Have they given any responses?
Yes. Okay. So February the 20th at I apologize, Pastor Roberson.
No, it's all good, man. Take your time. It's all good.
No, I'm talking to Pastor Roberson because it's his church. Fresh Anointing Church of God in Christ, St. James Ave, under the leadership of Pastor Roberson. Carl Cephas' mom, Michelle, had a speak out. And we went and I was, as a spokesperson for MORE, was asked to speak for justice. And so we went and we exposed them like for what they're not doing. And Captain Duda said he felt insulted that I would bring up these unsolved murders because his people work hard. And at that meeting, I let that go because I was inside the church and I really just didn't have an appetite. But after the show, after the speak out, Captain Duda told Sister Juanita that he would never come back to anything that MORE was doing again because their response to our act, the cry is for us as Black people to suffer quietly. There is a proper way to suffer. There's a proper way to have anger and pain and frustration. Do it in a proper. Don't be emotional, and just And I'm saying to us, how has that been working for us? Always playing it the right way. There's a right way to suffer pain of loved ones dying. There's a right way for a little girl who lost her father at 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Tay Tay, who was struggling now, and now at 13 is finally coming out of it. to hear these stories and to be amongst them. Young girls who were going on the brink of crazy because
Yep.
her brother was murdered. After meeting with Dave Lewis, after meeting with us, this young lady now is taking up training to get her CNA license. This is what we're doing on the ground. And for this mayor, so if I get emotional, for this dude to come in this
Okay, let's take a
community
moment.
and say what
Yep.
he said and the way he was saying it, a Caucasian sister went to him and said, Mr. Mayor, you got to listen to them. He turned his back and waved at us. The whole community saw it. And if you look at the video of that day, they said the mayor finally came back to hear the concerns of the constituents. When the camera pans over, you'll see it was nothing but white people in that audience. All of us, about 20 of us, who are on the other side, mothers who lost children to murder, concerned community citizens who are black, he turned his back on us. And then for Marlo Brown to go on TV and say that it was a political ambush and he is displeased is a blatant lie. And for
So none
him
of
to
that.
do that is a direct betrayal against the mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters who's lost children. He is not fit to be in office. He lied to the whole community.
So Charles, so you're saying that it wasn't planned. Nobody planned to speak out. Nobody planned to I'm not going to say disrupt. Nobody planned to challenge the mayor on some of the those prepared statements he's been given for the last 10 years. Nobody, that just happened because of what he was saying. It was a response, correct?
Absolutely, sir.
All right. And I'm asking these questions. I think, people need to understand, again, there's been a whole lot of talk. And you're right. Going back to what you said a few minutes ago, people are always saying that's not the way to do it. That's not the place to do it. That's not the time to do it. It's like, well, what is the way, the place, and the time? And if you can check me and hold me accountable when you think I'm doing something wrong, why can't we check white elected officials? Why can't we check members of the police department when we think that they messing up? What is the right way? It's like that whole plantation thing about, knowing your role and staying in your place. Yo, man, those are yesterday's blues. So when is the right time to confront these cats? And again, there are people who disagree with me vehemently, but I say publicly, kudos to you. Because I think anybody who takes an oath of office needs to be held accountable. Everybody should feel uncomfortable to just assume that because I'm the mayor or city council, school committee, whatever the case may be, that, you should be happy I'm here, or you shouldn't even talk to me because I'm whatever I am. It's ridiculous. So what type of responses have you been getting from people regarding you holding him accountable for something that I strongly believe that you were supposed to be holding him accountable for?
Well, the response has been overwhelmingly it's just been so much support. The sad part about the support is coming from mothers who's lost children, and they said the mayor never has spoken to them. One sister said that her brother died in 2009. She hasn't heard anything. So there's been an outpouring of people calling into more, talking about their loved ones who have gone on. And the more that we've been getting this information and doing the numbers, it's quite frightening and startling to know that it is that many homicides in this city with no answers. And it's really um, people are really listening, they're alert, and that moment has brought clarity to some of our eyes, and
Right.
particularly when it comes to those people who are black, who are open betrayers of our community. And for what, I don't know. I don't know. Marcus Williams, the president of the city council, came afterwards to say something, and I said to him, "You're pitiful." I told Jesse Lederman that he should be ashamed of himself. No longer can he exploit our community. You receive campaign finances from the police union, and we know that they are in their suit and ties supporting and laughing at the murder of innocent people. So you have a
And
responsibility, Marcus Williams, to go to the mayor and the police commissioner and ask them about all of these unsolved homicides. Melvin
and
Edwards.
and you know, Charles, being downtown for 12 years, I can tell you, I know there were a number of times which I've asked about that, attempted to get meetings, tried to get the data. They won't share it. I've seen city councils of color go into the office and ask those questions, and they don't get that data. And they don't get that data because no one has ever made them feel uncomfortable. And I think if you want response, if you look at things historically, that civil rights bill with Lyndon Johnson never would have been signed if they didn't burn down Newark, Compton, Chicago, Detroit, Waterbury, and cities all around the country. People tend to respond. And I'm not advocating violence and telling anybody to burn anything down. What I'm saying is typically the white folks, don't respond until they're intimidated or they're so damn afraid they know they have to do something because they know that people aren't going to tolerate it anymore. Anytime you get to the point where things would not be tolerated, people respond and they do what they're supposed to do. Let me ask you a question. You mentioned Jesse Lederman being funded by the police department. I'm going to go to the commissioner. On Saturday, December 19th, they had a roundtable discussion on race relations in the city of Springfield and the pouring out I guess they were supposed to talk about the Department of Justice report. And during that meeting, your police commissioner said, "I don't see systemic racism in the department." He said, "If I saw an issue or a problem that I saw or thought was systemic, I don't see systemic racism in the police department." What role do you think systemic racism and racism plays in terms of all of these unsolved murders?
Wow.
And do you think she's part of the problem, given that she can't see racism in her department? This is a woman who barely deals with any of the black executives downtown at City Hall. Tendency to say those people a lot. So, as we talk about this, I know she said, after the event on Saturday, she made the comment. She said, what'd she say? Oh, when you're having conversations of this sort, those people tend to get emotional. When they do, I just step to the side and let them speak. Talk about the police department's role in all this, and what do people, from your perspective, what do you think folks should be doing across our community to change this game a little bit?
I'm glad you asked, right? Because people think that I'm gonna use the I statement. I usually don't do this. That I have just an emotional guy and don't have any idea what's going on. So let me say, right now, myself and others are sitting with the Department of Justice, talking about and pushing the mayor to do the suggestions of the Department of Justice under Donald Trump, which gave them an F. So this is what we're looking at when it comes to policing. We're looking at abolishing qualified immunity
Okay.
that will allow good officers to be able to report the bad officers who are causing the mischief of the Springfield Police Department. We're also talking about and having Black police officers like Ahmad Sharif, of Clayton Roberson, others to be in our community. We're asking for community policing, but from police that we know and we trust. I grew up with Captain Larry Akers.
Okay.
Captain Larry Akers and I are childhood friends, but they're handcuffed, Brother Darrell. And so we're trying to fight to get the Black police officers
Okay.
the strength with qualified immunity being abolished. And the most important issue is to get the city councilors not to resign the Springfield Police Department union contract because they sit by and applaud and help legislate and laugh at the murder of our people. And so this is what we're looking for the community to be a part of. Promoting getting rid of the commissioner. She should resign at once. She's culpable for this, and she's been in the system for 40 years. That breeds this of what has happened. When Booker Washington was murdered by the Springfield Police Department, Benjamin Schofield murdered by the Springfield Police Department, and the union celebrated passing out ham and watermelon. We need the union to be abolished, and anybody that's running for city council or that's on the city council should not sign their contract. These are what we should be trying to focus on in the community with people who we elect for office and to promote that. And finally,
go ahead. Your final.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Your last thought.
Finally,
go ahead.
We need to get into Tinkham Road. We need to get into Westfield. We need to get into Ludlow. We need to get into these places, right, to help stop what's going on with the violence in the streets. We need to be doing the services in our community. We're asking to be at the table. Give us our young people.
Why not?
And I will quote Dr. John Henry Clark.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing that has ever come out of the mind of a European that has been good for African people. They can't heal our community. This is what we're asking for.
Charles.
Yes, sir.
With that being said, and that's the perfect story for what I wanted to say in terms of John Henry Clark's quote. It's a system that wasn't designed for us. We're talking police departments, talking about the evolution of patty rollers, slave patrols, and all that other stuff. It's never been designed for Black people. We're talking about getting into all these state-sanctioned systems to work with our young people. Why are we trying to sit at the table with them as opposed to building, creating our own table, creating our own rooms, and keeping them out? I think it's crazy to try and repair a system. It's not broken. It's doing what it was supposed to do. So sitting at the table with them, what does that? How does that change?
No, not. See, right now, Gerald, the reality is they are controlling it. The reality is our young people are mandated into that system. The reality is that they are holding our young people hostage based upon their system of jurisprudence that have them mandated. And so they have not given us the opportunity. So we're saying that at this point, we're not even in those facilities. The reality is politically, they have us handcuffed to where what we're saying is, okay, they're mandated to you. You don't want to give away your property, so to speak. And I'm serious. This is how they think about it as property. We're saying, okay, then we need to have contact with those young people. And we need to have the services not going to AISS to where young people are getting out of Ludlow and then they have to go to AISS. And those people are just correctional officers with khakis and white shirts. They need to come into institutions like Moore, institutions like ADMA. We have to fix up the institutions in our community that are not teaching pro-social skills. We have to build these things up because these people have had our in a vice for so long. And so in order for us now, we're trying to make progress. So I understand what you're saying, but we're not asking to sit at the table because we want to sit at the table and negotiate. No, we sit at the table because we want our people.
Can we do that before they get locked up, though? Why are we waiting?
Got people doing that now. I'm talking about there's a specific group of people. It's
kind of like the way Roca folks functions right now. You have to get these young, they getting all these gang dollars, but in order for them to help the people, they have to commit a crime, go to jail, and then they can get the services. And that's ass backwards. When on any given day, we walk down any of these streets and we have a captured population if we put forth the efforts. Why are we waiting for our young brothers and sisters to get locked up before we say, hey, we want to work with them? If the programs we design and run are that damn effective, them folks are going to come to us anyways because they're not going to have a choice. And I think if we do any capacity mapping within our community, we're going to find that there are no existing, and I don't care who says they have one, there are very little, if any, programs designed for Black adolescent development. There's no Black history. There's no
100% correct.
So the thing is, the responsibility really falls on us, the community. I know we have a young scholars program, man. We can't get a single Black elected official to walk through the door. I don't think we've ever had anybody come through. It's hard to get anybody to come through in volunteer time. Brother True came through, but it's hard to get people to even come in. Those programs require, everything we do out of our pockets with the money that we don't have. Folks know that I have been recently unemployed. So it's like, but everything is out of pocket. But the reality is, it's more important that we influence these young people's lives. I'm not waiting for nobody to go get locked up by Mr. Man before we get an opportunity to work with them. People can call me with them. I don't know. I just disagree with that.
The point I'm making is we already have a group of people. We're talking about right now as it exists.
Yep.
We have young people.
Yep.
In and out of their custody. Right now, everybody's running amok. The group of people that I deal with is a specific group, targeted group of people who are already in captivity. And what we're saying is that group of people we're dealing with because they are the influencers. And so we're trying to work with those group of people that's coming out, need reentry, a young man who was getting his life together, doing the right thing, but somebody else is saying, I don't care if you're trying to get your life together. I remember this and I'm going to kill you. We're trying to deal with those brothers. And so that's the difference.
No, I agree with you. Trust me, I understand what you're doing. I've done it for 25 years. That's where I started, doing gang intervention on the streets of New Haven, Bridgeport, Water. I've been there, done that. So I get it. You don't have to explain it to me. I got it. But somebody asked about qualified immunity. I just want to let people know it's a type of legal immunity. Specifically, qualified immunity protects a government official from lawsuits alleging that the official violated a plaintiff's right, only allowing lawsuits where officials violated a clearly established statutory or constitutional right. Right now, police officers are protected. You eliminate qualified immunity, it means that now they can be held accountable. Instead of suing the municipality, you can go directly after the police officers. It also means that it opens the door for legislation to be written on a state level for our Black and Latino state legislators. There is no verbiage that can implicate a police officer in a crime, which means technically there's when you see a lot of these police officers getting let off, nowhere across the country is there legislation that says we can actually arrest a police officer on the job. And that's a simplified way of putting it. One of these Thursdays, I'm going to bring an attorney on and let a civil rights attorney get on and talk about that, because people need to understand that. So while we're talking about elected officials and who we vote in and who we don't, we have to stop personal opinion. We have to stop voting for people who are looking for titles. We have to stop voting for people because they go on Facebook, they go out a bunch of angry rants, they complain about the mayor, the governor, whoever, and then they call themselves an activist. My man Mike Bonds calls them act as ifs. And I love that term. So we got to be very, very careful about who we elect and who we push forward. We need people who come with a body of work. So I just had to throw my little 2-minute soapbox spill on there. We're here to talk with you.
Beloved, that's wonderful. And the point that we're at right now, there's an upcoming election coming up, and we have to be smart as a community, and we have to know who our friends are and who our enemies are. And what happened Saturday was appalling and disrespectful and an insult to us as a community. And, people are running in Ward 8, and we need to ask them, what is your platform? Are you gonna work? Are you gonna get in there and not sign a contract for the union?
Charles,
you're gonna talking about getting rid of qualified immunity,
right?
Are you gonna push and work to get rid of the police commissioner? Hold them accountable. These are the people that we need to have in office, because if the president of the city council, Marcus Williams, can sit down and take pictures with the mayor and post them on Facebook, talk about he's not going to let the devil steal his joy. When Black mothers are crying in their beds at night because their children are dying, the mayor always throws Cephas Jackson up. But yet he has not found out who murdered Cephas Jackson's grandson. He uses great Black people in our community who want to do good and exploits them and uses them. So Helen Carlton Harris, Melvin Edwards, LeVar Click, all of you who work for the mayor, can you ask him, when is he going to do anything about these unsolved homicides of Black and Latino community residents? Because we know, Brother Darrell, if 23 Caucasian people were murdered.
Do you remember the young white man who was young white boy who was murdered at Blue Fusion a few years ago?
Yes.
That man turned the city upside down until they found out who did it. So 2 weeks prior to that, there was a young man who lives on James Street. I don't know the young brother. And they just blew it off. They said it was gang related. Come to find out, from what I heard, it was a domestic thing. So it's kind of like every Black person that gets murdered, first thing they assume is there's a drug transaction or they're gang involved. And those are some crazy arguments we would have up in the office. Well, how do you know? Well, our sources. Well, who the hell are your sources? I know your officers don't know anything about who's in gangs and who ain't, who's doing what. They don't know. Their intel is basically bull. But I want to say something. You said what took place on Saturday was a travesty. I think what took place on Saturday was necessary, because I think people got an opportunity to see what real Black leadership should look like. If you're really speaking for Black people, you should be able to confront these dudes, because we both put on our pants the same way. We put on our shirts the same way. And I think everybody is beyond accountability. We have this thing. I'm going to go back to what you said, when folks are saying not the right time, the right place, and all that other stuff, or the right method. I think it was brilliant. I think people finally got an opportunity to see somebody stand up and hold him accountable and make him feel uncomfortable. Man to man, it's so easy to talk to another black person that way. They'll run up to a black elected official and do the rah, rah, rah. But when it comes down to white elected officials, we're always like, well, no, don't do it like this. Look, we can find a better way. Let's get him in a room and sit down. No, he shouldn't be comfortable. They represent us. And the day we stop making everybody else feel uncomfortable is the day when we can walk around and we can hold on to our own balls.
Yeah, so I think that's so critical. You know, one of the things is about Saturday too. They had a designed agenda for that day.
But you know what, Charles? Forget about them for a minute. We know the McKnight Post. Listen, man, I was supposed to.
I'm talking about they had the exploitation. Brother Kenny, Brother Kenny?
Yeah, that's my brother.
Okay. They called them, they called the family of nonviolence.
Yep.
To pass out flyers.
Yep.
Brother Kenny said he didn't even know why he was there. They didn't even know why they were there, brother. This is what I mean about the exploitation, the disrespect.
They control the narrative that way. The bottom line is every time they do that, they're controlling the narrative. And what you did in terms of holding this dude accountable, everybody across the city, probably everybody in Western Mass have already seen that verbal conflict. And it was absolutely necessary because now it means that everybody can start manning up. Again, it goes back to, I had asked the question, we have an article in the paper talking about should the mayor continue to be welcomed in the black community? Any elected official, black, white, blue, or brown, if they're not doing due diligence and fairly representing the black community, should we be parading them through our community? Should we invite them to funerals, weddings, community meetings, anything? Should we be inviting these dudes into our neighborhoods, into our communities, into our homes? Or do we continue to put up with the same old, Massa ain't that bad. I'm going to bring Massa a slice of my sweet potato pie. He ain't bad. How do we move forward from here?
How we move forward? Well, I'm going to speak humbly for me.
Okay.
Because I can only speak for me.
I understand.
Wherever he's at in this city, in this community, whatever Negro brings him through here and parade him through here, I will be there to ask him for justice for the families of the unsolved homicide. He's not going to come through this community while I'm living and doing what he's doing. Mothers want justice. Children want justice. And we don't care about who gets locked up. There's a price to pay for everybody's act. We're not against people who are acting devilish from going to jail. We want justice, whatever that looks like. And we don't want this mayor who lied to us, he waved his back to us, cursed at us.
He did use profanity, didn't he?
He said, I don't have to take this fucking shit. He said it more than once. I don't have to take this fucking shit. Brother John, hear me out, brother.
Okay.
Ask anybody who was there. You don't have to believe Brother Stokes. This is what he said out of his mouth to me. I said, I know you don't care. We could tell by the unsolved homicide. We know you don't care. I know he doesn't. That's why I told you don't care. And that's why I was telling people don't touch me.
Right.
Everybody coming towards me. But this dude is the disrespectful dude. Slandering us. Coming to a look.
That reminds me of something Malcolm said when he said, white man getting sick on the plantation and all the field hands go, Massa, we sick? You step up because this dude pulled a verbal whip and everybody trying to, restrain you because this man is cursing you out.
But I understand, and I was saying this, right?
I'm listening.
My mother used to want us in the house before the streets light got on.
Okay.
And when we didn't make it in, she would beat us. And I figured it out as I got older. She was afraid for me being out that late because of, in her mind, how evil the white man had been doing us. But it was out of her fear of her black son, something happening, that she would try to beat me to remember to get home safe. So it is with our community. They probably was like,
we live in a sundown country. You have to be home. Street lights come on, otherwise anything can happen. And we still live in a sundown country. I take that to my grave.
So that's why I said nobody touch me.
Okay.
No, I put their hands on me. It's okay. He's wrong. I said, I'm not gonna shut up. He's gonna shut up. And you know everybody's gonna listen.
And again, I say brilliant because I think people finally got a chance to see how we really should be standing up to everyone. Congressman Neal, why does he get a pass? All these other, state reps, why do they get a pass? We hold Buddy Williams accountable, but we don't hold any other Western Mass legislators accountable. State senators, everybody's going to start going after Adam Gomez. But what about Eric Lesser? Everybody needs to be held accountable the same way. If they won't sit down and have a peaceful conversation, then you catch them where you catch them. If I did you a grave injustice and you see me walking out of a local bodega, you ain't got cats won't have no problems approaching me. Correct me if I'm wrong. So,
yeah. Real quickly.
Very quickly.
Since Brother Adam has been in office,
yep,
him and I have been working together. We've been talking. He's doing some good things up in Boston. Not quite as kept, but he's really got his nose to the grind. There's some, Brother Gerald, recently, as I've been working in the community, I've noticed that there is a fearful awakening. And people don't know how to move. They want to move, but they're fearful because we have never thought about what it would be like to be successful, to be able to speak your mind. We've always been told there's a way to do this. You got to move a certain way. That hasn't worked for us. And people have exploited that.
Right.
And so now the mayor, look at his record. Look at what he's not done. More importantly, if there were 40 or more unsolved homicides of white people, this whole state would be in an uproar. This is critical. And the mayor has fallen asleep. And Marlo Brown, Marcus Williams, Melvin Edwards, Jesse Lederman, Katie Walsh Keller, whatever her name is, all of them.
Why don't you just put all the elected officials on notice?
Yeah, I want to say their name.
Okay.
Because I think it's important that we hear their name and put them out there and ask them you're elected to do a job and you're not helping us. And for Marlo Brown to say that was a political ambush and you didn't tell anybody from the community is a blatant lie and disrespect. To say that the mayor and the commissioner came out to answer questions when the mayor talked about at a gun violence initiative, conference, speech, whatever, what a wonderful job the money he spent to catch illegal dirt bikes had nothing to do, Brother Daryl, with the life of people who've been murdered in the streets. And it was an insult and a slap in our face.
Well, Charles.
And I wasn't going to allow him or them to get away with that.
I got you. Listen, we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure people understand there are a plethora of issues that we should be addressing, and it's not just, street violence is critical because anytime we lose life is critical, but we have to look at tax title foreclosures and how they negatively impact the Black community. We have to look at hiring and employment within the city of Springfield, promotion. We have to look at equity in terms of making sure that we have access to all the same resources that everybody else has downtown at City Hall. Economic development in terms of looking at the procurement office to ensure that our contractors and our business owners have fair and equal access to those dollars. People can push for equality all day long. I don't give a damn about equality, but equity is critical. They have us so focused, most of the time, they have us so focused on the police department, we forget about all of the other atrocities that are being committed in municipalities across the country. So I don't know if people fully understand the significance of systemic racism. It's not just the police. It's not just their incompetence when it comes down to resolving and solving crimes within our community. And I just want to say real quick definition of racism and systemic racism. Racism describes the marginalization of oppressed or oppression of individuals because of their race. Systemic racism provides another dimension to that. It describes what happens when cultural institutions and systems reflect that individual racism. As Dr. Crystal Fleming writes in How to Be Less Stupid About Race, the major insight about systemic and institutional racism is that there is no such thing as a little bit of racism or pockets of racism or random incidents of racism, isolated from the rest of society. Whether you realize it or not, racism is systemic, pervasive, and embedded within the core of all of our major institutions. It is so pervasive that we will allow people to blatantly discriminate against us, mistreat us, abuse us, and we will look at them and continue to shuffle and smile as if we don't feel any pain. And I just think what you did on Saturday in terms of holding dude accountable and checking him, I think it was brilliant. I think it was absolutely necessary. I know we have a lot of people who say they're unapologetic, but yet then they say, well, I'm not going to go step up. I'm not going to step to him right now, but I'll see if I can get a meeting. Dealing with that situation right then and there, I thought it was brilliant, brother. I just wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to speak your piece because the narrative is everything. And it's gotten to the point where when we talk about systemic racism, they control the entire narrative, which is why media, these types of media platforms, print media, is so critical in terms of getting this information out. We have to make sure that our faces, our names, our voices are clearly heard and putting our people on Front Street so they get a chance to have their story heard. Because if you let them tell the story, doesn't matter. We're all thugs and criminals. I think those are his favorite words. We're all thugs and criminals. And it's not just Dominic Sarno. It makes its way all the way down to the State House in Boston. This is what we do. So I just want to take a moment before we close out and read some of the comments because you got mad support. My brother, Spanky Blake, says nothing but love and respect for Brother Charles. You've been passionate about whatever you've done in your life. I'll always support you. Peace. My man, DJ Boogie Keshawn Harris, he's always there. He says, respond, don't react. Way back when you couldn't get it together, you should take your time, big bro. Desi, Spank says something I agree with her. I might put that on a shirt next to become tearless. If the masses are uncomfortable and in pain and mourning, how can anyone be well? Because they don't identify with us. So we got a lot of changes we need to make. Desi Jackson, not sure what we'll talk about, but said he can't disagree. Facts, D.Moss. Drew Keaton, it's not always gang related. You're right. A lot of these shootings, sometimes the gang life has nothing to do with it.
True.
DJ Boogie says we need to continue to back one another. Goes on to say, once I felt the backing of my brothers, Daryl, Charles, and many others, I felt ready to take on these people. Man, when we listen, man, when we come together and we work together, people say we don't unify, but when we come together, ain't nothing stopping us, man. My brother Kevin Dumpson says most elected officials utilize their offices as personal stepping stones for their own professional or political advantage and advancement. Yeah, that's another t-shirt. Kev, or as usual, you're always on point. Sumali says, yes, Daryl, the environment as a whole. Kevin Dumpson says the word systemic itself implies a concerted effort to oppress a targeted demographic. Absolutely right. Kev says, I'm unapologetic, and hesitation or intimidation prevents my tongue from speaking or my fingers from pointing. Oh, brother, we know we wasn't talking about you. You know I enjoy working with you, brother Kev. That's an easy one. So with that, we got about 2 minutes. Charles, man, closing statements, anything you want to say or share before we close the broadcast?
First and foremost, man, again, Daryl, brother, thank you for the support, and thank everyone for their support. But this is just the beginning for us. We have a lot to do, and it's been a long time, brother Daryl. We met 23 years ago, and I have been saying since Albano the same thing. They don't care about us, and once we come together, we're more powerful than we know. And like, I love the community, I love the city, I love working with the people. Yes, I'm passionate. Yes, I'm angry, because to live in this society the way it is, if you're not angry, you're walking dead. And let's vet these people running for office, and let's get to the polls. Let's support each other. Support the dropping pop-up bookstores. Support each other. That really matters. That $5 or $10 that you spend with somebody who looks like you matter. And we're gonna make it. And those of you who are not on our side, we still love you. We'll bring you back after we capture this shit. But if you are not with us, you're against us. And we have to break up these relationships, whether they are fraternity brothers, sorority sisters. If you are not on this side, you can no longer support Dominic Sarno and let him come to this community and then say you are part of the black community. That's not, you can't do that no more to us. So I thank you, Daryl, for this opportunity.
Not a problem. All right, everybody. This is One-on-One with D.Moss. We're here every Thursday evening at 7:30. Tell somebody to tell somebody. If you have a story that you think you want to tell, you want to share with the world, there's information that you need to get out to our communities, hit me up. We'll get you on and we'll talk about it. Information is critical. Narrative is everything. Much love, everybody. Much peace and much respect. We out.